Exile, you have wandered far to arrive at the shores of my lake. A hidden realm I have overseen for longer than time itself.
Enough of that drama. I'm Winkers with Cardboard Bastards, and I'm here to talk to you about the patch 3.19.0 Path of Exile Lake of Kalandra League announcement and patch notes released today. A lot of what's in this has already been gone over in the balance manifesto. I made a video about that already. It was pretty dire. I'm much more optimistic after this, and we're going to get into why in a moment. But first, let's start with some of the basics here. What does the League do? Well, so you find these monoliths, and, well, they give you a number of modifiers to look over, and you put them in, you build your own encounter, and you kind of build a bridge of sorts. The further you are from the entrance, the more difficult it gets. And they even showed in the video there was a way to swap these around. The cool thing about this is it's very synthesis-like. If you like synthesis, you'll probably like this. If you didn't like synthesis, you'll probably like this better, because a lot of the shortcomings of synthesis probably aren't going to be here. Synthesis had a lot of roughage to it. You know, the synthesizing system wasn't the best, and quite frankly, getting memories felt pretty punishing at times. This doesn't have that. You just get a choice in the map, you build it, and when it's done, you go do it. We've got, what? Packs of infested creatures, lightning-themed rogue exiles. You can swap tiles with the water tile. That's going to be very interesting because it'll let you make it longer. And again, length equals difficulty equals reward. Swap a reflection with another reflection. Packs of the Undying, infested creatures. So these are all just kind of basic types of enemies. The Undying, I think, are in Act 3. The infested creatures are like those annoying bug guys from Act 6. Before the Brine King, after Chevron. And then we have, what? Reflection of Tyranny. Defeat several powerful foes, forged in frost. I don't know what that means. I'm guessing they're going to be very difficult, though. More or less, the way the League is going to work is you're going to get interesting rewards from this in the form of reflected amulets or rings. Most of these are going to be offered to you with, like, pros and cons. That's not one of them. We'll talk about that in a moment. More like this. It'll just be kind of blank. And you're going to want to look for things that benefit you and don't hurt you. So, you know, a build that that has more cold res than it needs and doesn't really suffer from reduced mana regen or evasion, loves huge life, huge fire res, and huge wed. Or it'll offer you one with the reverse bonuses. So this is for that ES build that needs a bunch of mana. And some evasion, I guess. This is definitely better than this one, but, you know, it's going to be if and or but. And then there's going to be some base types that work differently. They also seem to do different things based on the ring slot you put them in, which is kind of a theme right now for the whole mirrored concept. I'm guessing that's why they went with jewelry specifically. They're pretty good. I like them. I think there's going to be a lot of use seen. It seems like the mods can get very, very powerful, and obviously, if you can get a negative lightning resistance modifier, that might be useful somewhere, instead of being a downside, you know? And then at the very high tier, you're going to be able to gamble your own items, like with this one right here. On a build that does not care about mana, crit, or damage over time multiplier, that amulet's insane. Yeah, that amulet is very insane. +2? Like, I mean, are you kidding me? Almost 200 life? Fantastic. And then, you know, the reverse for someone who doesn't play fire and needs mana and dot multi on a crit build. That one's a little more limited. Still insane, though. Just the values are obnoxiously high. It's very exciting. After this, Atlas Memories. This was actually a core content feature they announced. This is very cool again. You find memories in your map, you apply them to a specific map on your atlas, so they would have applied it here, because you apply it to the map it starts at, and then it builds a chain. And you follow the chain, and, I mean, it says right there, for this one, Harbinger portals, you kind of follow through, and the Harbingers get tougher and tougher, culminating into kind of a bigger fight in the final map, which is just a fantastic idea. There's another one here for Breach. I believe they showed in the video there were breaches where the entire map was permanently breached. And that's kind of a dream situation, right? Breach stones are already fun just because running through all those breach monsters and just getting to kill a huge horde of them is a lot of fun. And then also breach bosses have a chance to drop a breach stone. That's great. Additional large breach hands. It's going to be very, very good. But more specifically, they talked about them as a way for you to kind of experience content at that fully juiced Atlas level without having to do a full respec. And I think that's a great, great idea. Because anyone who's experienced multiple content types realizes doing it baseline is usually kind of doable for any build that's kind of hit its stride. But doing it juiced is very different. And Sometimes your build isn't good enough. Other times, your build is really good for content that you think it wouldn't be after it's been juiced. And it's great that people can kind of get a feel for that better now. Next, new gems. Of course, the new gems. It's been 3 leagues or so. I think 3.16 was when we had the last batch of new gems that were like actually skill gems and not just supports. We have 3 skill gems here and 1 support. Alchemist's Mark is fantastic. They removed the gain flash charges from Sniper's Mark and put it over here. I think that's fine. Sniper's Mark is very good from the get-go, so I'm not really too torn up about that. Also, this is awesome. Anyone who's played a curse build has realized that if you're going to do ailments, you don't really have a mark you can go to. That's changed. If you're doing fire or chaos, because it's ignite and poison are your big ailments. I mean, kind of weird that there's nothing for bleed now that I think about it, but it is what it is. This is actually kind of almost a flat more damage multiplier, unless I'm reading it wrong, because it creates a ground effect underneath the enemy, which I believe will also apply to the enemy, which is fantastic. Just guaranteed, you know, what is it? Deal 60% of your poison, of the strongest poison on the enemy. Yeah, like, I mean, what's there to say with that? I'm going to read it again just to make sure I'm not getting this wrong, but I believe it also affects the enemy you've cursed, not just the enemies around it. Yes, correct. That's fantastic. It has a duration modifier on it. Don't panic. Marks are still permanent. That's just the length of the ground effect. Very good. Also keeps your flask charges up. Great synergy with the flask attack skills. Just kind of a good one. You know, they nailed it on this one. I'm very happy with it. Galvanic Field. Very interesting. Spell AoE duration, lightning, chaining orb. Low cast time, which is good because it's kind of a supplementary spell. If you're running 2 6-links, this is probably on the list of things to consider. You've got something other than Stormbrand now, or something along those lines, you know, Orb of Storms, which Lightning admittedly has a lot of those. This one is kind of interesting though, because this is almost like a clear speed enabler. The way it works basically is you apply a buff that gives you bonus shock, and then when you shock the enemy, this big old sphere appears around them. And it does damage. And if the enemy dies, the sphere stays where the corpse was and, you know, continues to deal the damage. It seems to attack very quickly, but has a limit on how often it can hit the same target. That's a little bit of a bummer, but I mean, as a supplementary skill, as a skill for clear, and with the chaining tag, but not projectile, you can get the extra chain for free from the masteries. That's really cool. Also, just 20% chance to shock enemies is nice, especially when we get to the next part. The field gains more damage with hits per shock effect, so the investment there is good. Gains more radius per shock effect. You invest a lot in shock effect. Galvanic Field's going to be huge. Lightning Conduit, I'm a little soft on, not going to lie. This one's hard to gauge how good it is. It's a 1-2 punch skill. They've built in kind of a mechanism to keep you from abusing it with, well, Spell Cascade, Unleash, or triggers. And I kind of don't love that. But maybe it's fine. I'm going to be honest, maybe it's fine. This might actually be strong enough because it's a 1-2 skill where even if you're triggering it, it's okay. Even if you're only triggering it, what is it, every half a second? That might not be a problem. Because you need to be shocking as well. And we're going to get to how shocking works in a moment. But the base damage at level 1 seems pretty good as far as I can tell. And having the more damage, I mean, this might just be strong enough. It's really hard for me to tell without like booting up a 20 gem in Poe, and we haven't gotten those yet. The effectiveness of the added damage is pretty alright as well. Overcharge. This is, honestly, even though it's just a support gem, this is probably the thing I'm most excited about. First of all, 50% chance to shock is a huge value. Supported skills deal 25% less damage is also a huge value, but that's fine because the third line of text is what makes this exciting. Shock enemies as though dealing 500% more damage. Do you know how hard it is against like a big boss like Cyrus or something to apply a full power shock? It's obnoxious. It's basically impossible. Maybe not anymore, though. You can have a secondary skill with this and use it to wind up a huge damage bonus on a primary skill. And that's where things like Lightning Conduit and Galvanic Field almost get more exciting, because clearly you wind up a big shock and then you pop them. And it's probably going to feel good. I think it's going to feel better without these, though. I think that might be the downfall of these two skills, is that you just have, like, I don't know, Shock Nova or something along the lines that puts the big shock on them. And then you have Valark. Valark Mage, and you smack them. I don't know how Valark is going to work with Archmage in the next league. Of course, Archmage is not where it used to be, but the idea of just that really big hit kind of following up the huge shock value, and it not getting consumed. So it doesn't have to be Archmage. You could just do Ball Lightning, and it would be amazing, because you're getting a huge damage multiplier you probably couldn't have before. It's going to be interesting to see how far you can stretch, right, the shock effect on like a 4-link even, to give you that really good damage boost. Of course, important to note, shock enemies is dealing 500% more damage. That's not increased shock effect, so that like the guaranteed minimum shock. We're now going to hop over to the patch notes and take a look at some of the more exciting changes, and probably some of the less exciting changes real quick. First thing I want to start with is a little league called Scourge. I don't think many people were expecting Scourge to be brought up, but it did. And it's not called Scourge anymore, it's called Beyond, because Beyond is gone. Now we have Scourge as Beyond. And it's kind of awesome. I'm not going to lie. There's a reason why it's awesome, I'll be honest. If they hadn't made some of the other changes they made, this wouldn't be as cool. It wouldn't even be remotely close to as cool. But they did make the changes, so it is cool. You're going to see less rare mobs, and that's kind of a theme. We're going to get into that at the end, because I think it's the high note of the entire patch. It counteracts a lot of my concerns in the balance manifesto. But to start with, Beyond is now Scourge. You don't go into the Scourge realm. They come out the same way Beyond mobs do. But most importantly, Tainted Currency's back. Tainted Currency is back. The only thing we're missing is like a safe way to corrupt items. There is actually still a few safe ways to corrupt items where you don't really have to worry about it bricking. There's like the 30% Einhar craft. But man, is that exciting. It feels good to have a quick, easy way to get a 6-link. You know, it just feels good. So thank goodness we're getting that. That makes me so happy. It's kind of that getting back, you know, on the itemization side of things. That piece just got a little bit easier to fit in kind of a minor way, because it's never going to be your best item. I mean, it could be, I guess. If you made a perfect item and then 30%ed it with Einhar and did this, you're probably pretty happy, right? But it's just, I'm very, very happy. Back up to the top here, we have Exalted and Divine Orbs. This is a little bit controversial. I kind of like the idea that Divine Orbs are being made more in parity with Exalted Orbs. Honestly, parity is the wrong word. They're better now. They're going to be the more expensive one. The meta mods that you craft them with Divine Orbs. Yeah, that's what it is. That's how they did it. That was most of where Exalted Orbs value came from, to be honest, because if you were making an incredible item, you had to do that craft a lot. You had to do it a lot. The worst part of this is that they nerfed selling a 6-link item. It doesn't give you Divine Orb anymore. It gives you 20 Orbs of fusing. I don't think that's a good enough reward. Honestly, with Exalted Orbs being, you know, kind of dumpstered the way they are, I wish they would have made it just an Exalted Orb. That would have been fantastic. All right, give us a reason to vendor a 6-link socketed item, because, you know, there is a lot of economic reasons where getting 6-links corrupted was valuable, and that's gone. That's a pretty big deal. More importantly, though, and probably the biggest change, is if you are playing Soul Self-Found, you've probably already thought of this. I'm so sorry for you, because, I mean, I used to play a lot of Soul Self-Found. I kind of stopped, not really because I wanted to, because I just have friends who play the game and they want to play with me, and it's like, you know, so I would play Standard, but I just wouldn't trade, and then I started making build guides, and it was like, well, I have to be able to trade now, right? I gotta be able to show that the build does what it does. You can't do the Divine Vessel recipe anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that. You can still do it, but if you sell a Divine Orb, and your build at any point needs to craft an item that abuses metamods, which a lot of builds do this. They get to a point where they're like, you know, multi-mod it, right? You make a base item, and then you multi-mod it, and you've got something that's good for a while. Divine Orbs are as rare as Exalted Orbs. If you find lots of Exalted Orbs instead of Divine Orbs next league, and you have to sell your only Divine Orb with flasks to make Divine Vessels because you didn't get any, that's going to suck. That's going to suck a lot. There's no way there's not going to be some cases where a lot of people complain about this. And I'm almost a little bit worried in like a race scenario where what if someone gets unlucky? You know, that was put in there for a reason and they kind of just removed it. So I hope they do something with that. Even if they just changed it to be done with an Exalted Orb, because Exalted Orbs are going to be more common. And one of the other nice things about this change is you're going to get to X-Slam stuff, right? You're going to see a piece of equipment where you're like, well, I don't really want to do too much, you know, high investment to recraft this, but it's pretty good as it is, and it's got another modifier slot. So you slam it. And that's probably going to make some great moments. Moving on. I didn't love the rebalancing unique item announcement. I really didn't. I didn't like the way they did it, because we had concerns about the manifesto, and then they, like, immediately deflected, which I mean, I love that they have these here because they're good. I'm going to come out and say that right now. A lot of these are really good and exciting. But it's kind of weird that they would say, give us your feedback. And then when we gave them feedback, they were like, no, you don't have the whole picture yet. And there's other companies that sometimes take that approach, and it sucks. Please don't do that. For starters, cheap construction, replica cheap construction, Chitis Needle? Chitis? I don't remember how that's pronounced. Glitter Disc, Izzaro's Dilemma, Izzaro's Turmoil, Rotting Legion, Spine of the First Claimant, The Peregrine, and Viper Scales, and World Carver. Double ands, that's them, not me. They can't drop anymore. May they rest in peace in Standard. Funny. Most of these, I'm kind of glad they're gone, because they were pretty bad. They weren't very good. Rotting Legion was actually kind of interesting. I'm kind of surprised that's gone, but I can see why they'd get rid of it, right? There are a lot of options for the chess piece, and Rotting Legion maybe just didn't get there. There's a lot of changes. I have singled out some of the ones I found more interesting. Generally, every item is better. It is important to say at the end here, though, faded uniques are basically gone. A lot of items had their faded effects rolled in, and the rest of them were just removed. Specifically, though, Camaria's Avarice is now a vendor recipe, which is interesting, because if it's not too difficult and someone finds a way to build around that, it'd be kind of a big deal for people in, not as big trade leagues in softcore, because that's not an easy item to get normally. But it does have an interesting effect that could be powerful one day. So, we're going to start with an item I don't think people have been terribly excited about for a long time. It's called... Oh, actually, you know what? We're going to start here. Bramble Jack. Bramble Jack is not exciting at first glance. It gives a little bit more life, has a bit more physical damage reduction. More importantly, though, 1,000% of melee physical damage taken reflected to the attacker. From 40! From 40! That's not 100% increase. Oh my god. It's huge, right? It's ginormous, right? That's it's not 10 times more. It's more than 10, it's more than 20 times more. I think it's 25 times more. 25 times more effect. This is a big deal for later. I want to make sure everyone pays attention to that, though, because that's a very big number, and it's going to allow for very interesting unique interaction. Our first real item is the Bringer of Rain. First of all, huge life. Very good. It has to be huge because it's your helmet and your chest piece. So now you've got like a 200 flat HP chest piece and a 100 HP helmet rolled in together. It also gives block. Some of the stats baseline aren't listed here. It's a good item, but these supports are now all level 30. So level 30 melee phase, level 30 faster attacks, and then your other supports. That's a pretty damn acceptable 6-link for a melee build. If you find this early, you have your 6-link. There's just no other way to put it. You're going to replace it at some point, almost certainly, but you're going to be fine with this for a long time. I'm very excited about this. That's a great change. This is kind of what this item needs to be, is like that early mapping option. And it's here again. Next is Clay Shaper, which gives just a tremendous amount of added attack physical damage to your golems. I don't know how big a deal this is actually going to be because I haven't plugged it into POV or anything, but that's a big number. It's a big number. I'm kind of sad they got rid of the increased maximum life, because with that, I think this actually would have been probably a contender. But it's going to be interesting to see what this does, because, I mean, it's a big number, and it still gives you additional golems. Clay Shaper still gives you additional golems. So I believe that the big attack golems are the ice ones and the stone ones. There might be something there where you're running 2 Clay Shapers on a build, because, man, Smash Bros. That's what you're going to be calling the boys after that. That said, let's get to the fun part of Bramble Jack. Crown of the Pale King now has 100% of damage you reflect to enemies when hit is leached as life. This means that an enemy hits you with Bramble Jack and Crown of the Pale King. The enemy hits you, and it reflects back 1,000% damage, and 1,000% of that hit is leached to you as life. That's a defensive layer. I don't know if it's a good one, but it's hilarious. It makes me very happy. It's wow. I don't know if this is going to be good or if it's just going to be a meme, but man, they really did take the numbers up on it, didn't they? I hope to hell and back that it's good. I really do. That seems like so much fun. Next we have Sybil's Paw. This is probably a strange one to bring up for a lot of people, but I played Stormburst back in Expedition League, and I found that Stormburst does incredibly well with life gained on hit for your spells. So this item being buffed is kind of a big deal to me. Plus 5 to 8 already kind of got it working in early maps. 15 to 20 Fantastic. Actually really good. This is going to make you incredibly survivable for the early mapping experience and give you time to get to those Crusader rings that give you the bigger life gain on hit, or even the Watcher's Eye. Might be worth playing next league. I might, you know, second character, something like that. Just as a smaller note, Death's Harp has had its nerf reverted. It now fires 2 additional arrows again. Kind of exciting. I don't know that that's going to make it see play again, but I mean, it's great to have power back. You know, they didn't forget. This is probably the first one now that I'm going to get really excited about. The Death Rush unique ring has been redesigned and no longer has any of its old properties. That's a fun line of text to hear no matter what. It's kind of scary because, you know, old Death Rush was like Onslaught. Sometimes, though, you lose the old thing and you get something better. It now has recover 5% of life on kill and gain adrenaline for 3 seconds on kill. Holy shit. Just actually holy shit. I mean, first of all, this build is, or this item is good for everyone. I don't think there's a single build in the game. If you don't know what adrenaline does, 100% increased damage, 25% increased attack, cast, and movement speed, and 10% additional physical damage reduction. You are going to have this up 100% of the time while mapping. There's just no way around it. You are going to be murderizing the map fast. This is baby Headhunter, almost. I feel like this is going to be in an incredibly high rarity tier. I hope it isn't, like, because I feel like any build could slot this in if they can give up 1 ring and just like have a more comfortable mapping experience. It's so cool. I love that. It's fantastic. Smaller note, I just wanted to say I thought the change to Fairgrace Tricorn was really cool. It's now a very unique item. You can be touched by tormented spirits inappropriately. No, appropriately. There is no inappropriate touching going on. But, you know, the buffs that they impart to enemies, they now impart to you as well. And that's really cool. That's, I don't know if that's going to see any use. But it is interesting, right? That you can be ghosted now, a little bit. You can't, like, be full ghosted. But, man, that's, wow. It's just something, you know? If you're hunting that fishing rod, you've got something to go on. Chris Wilson just showed up at my house and told me to stop talking about fishing. That's crazy. They're so fast these days. They show up in person, man. He like just revealed the patch. That's amazing. Pretend I didn't say that, by the way. Actually, Joffrey's Crest is kind of interesting because they don't really post nerfs in this section. There's actually some other uniques that have received down tuning that I talk about later. So I'm kind of surprised that's even here. I hope that doesn't mean they're trying to pass this off as a buff, because this is not a buff. This is... Ugh. This next one was revealed before the patch. Prim Sorrow now total converts. This is good. Being able to get all of your physical damage to cold, or just elemental in general, instantly is very powerful, because this was usually used with Fizz to Lightning, and now you don't even need the Fizz to Lightning. It's just pure cold, hard freezing action, good chills. Maybe a bit of a Blade Vortex buff, to be honest, for some builds. I'm excited. I think these might get used again. We have Learcast. Learcast got buffed a lot. This is an example of an item that was like really off the radar, and now it is really on the radar. The reduced damage penalty was lowered a tiny bit. Almost inconsequential to even talk about that. It now gives you a ton of life and mana, and that's awesome. For starters, anytime a unique item fills your life and mana needs or exceeds them, it's like immediately very exciting, just because getting that baseline HP to scale is very important, and sometimes when you're fitting a lot of unique items you can't do that, so this one becomes easier to fit. Also, that nearby you and nearby allies gain increased damage mod has been bumped from 15 to 50%. 50! Think about that for a moment. This is now a 25% damage gain even if you're the one wearing it. This is almost a leveling item, right? If you get, what is it, the new have we gotten there yet? We haven't. We're going to get to 1,000 Ribbons in a moment, but Learcast with 1,000 Ribbons is probably going to be pretty cool. Now, Lightning Coil is now 50% of physical damage from hits taken as lightning damage. For those of you who don't know, that's basically 37.5% Fizz damage reduction at 75 lightning res. That's a lot. It's a big number. It also gives some lightning damage to attacks baseline. It's got decent armor and evasion rating values. That's going to be a good item. I don't know who's going to use it, right? Because sometimes you just need to get damage from your chest piece, and this doesn't really do it in a big way. But the build whose only weakness is physical damage loves this armor a lot. A lot. Someone's going to use it. I think it's going to be a surprise. Marohi Erki. When I first looked at this, I got really concerned. Because you read just a bunch of nerfs to the item, right? It's lost its added damage. It lost its reduced movement speed. which is actually good. It lost its socket of gem supported by level 15 pulverize, and that was really surprising me because this was a big factor of why this unique item was really cool, because getting mods like this was now very rare. Also, they made the attack speed even slower and gave you a giant negative accuracy rating. That said, a perfectly rolled one of these has a average damage of 840 per hit. Holy shit. I think playing a bleed build with mesas might be possible now. I mean, obviously, it's a little possible. Some sort of bleed earthquake thing with Maruhi Erki is going to be fun. You're going to be overcoming that reduced attack speed a little bit, but man, is that just a big number to start from, you know? Man, is it a big number. I'm very excited. Oko's Embrace. This is another one that was revealed before the patch notes, and I was ready to talk about this immediately. So all damage taken from it can now ignite you. The big problem with this item before was that getting ignited was kind of difficult, but now it's not. Also, 25 to 40% increased attack and cast speed while ignited. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as non-weapon slot items go, this ring is now the highest cast speed, like, tool out there. That's huge. 40% is a big number. That's a huge number. It's probably also the biggest attack speed. It's just, god damn, right? The build that gets this working is going to be fun. It's going to be strong. It's going to kill stuff very effectively. All the way down to the R's, we have Repentance. They removed a pitiful amount of energy shield, and honestly, like, the part of the drawback that was most annoying with this item, it's actually just all good now, and it gives you 6 to 12% increased strength on a item that is designed around using Iron Will. Yeah, get after it. You know, also huge armor and energy shield rolls. This is incredible. Like, no joke. This item's kind of saucy. This, you know, when you have a 6 to 12% increased strength roll, it's almost like having a life roll on the item already. And then just, you know, the big armor and energy shield saves you the points of having to path to Iron Will. I feel like the ideal version of an Iron Will build probably runs these at some point. You know, strength stacking. I said Iron Will build. Strength stacking. For spells. Rhyme Gaze. Well, if it's broken, you can just put an item in the game that makes it obscene. Rhyme Gaze was kind of a hard item for me to fit, because I'm very picky about my gear. I want it to give me defenses. If it gives me enough damage, though, I'll change my mind. And 50% to cold dot multi is... wow. Like, damn. That's a lot, dude. It already gave 22, which was, like, actually really good, and a lot of people used it for that reason. Now it's obscene. That's a huge amount. If you have no cold dot multi, this is 50% more damage on a helm. If you already have cold dot multi, it's probably still a really big number for your build. It's very good. Sappho's Frame got a pretty interesting buff. It was already a really great shield just for being good against things that weren't attacks. Well, that weren't physical attacks, because it gives you a ton of max res. Now, it gives you even more all res, which is just always welcome on a unique item, because usually when you have uniques, you're running out of resistance or life, and this covers one of them. It also gives you survivability, so honestly, the life is covered too. But now it gives you a lot of spell block. 30% spell block is no joke. 30% spell block is like, you've made a dent, you do a little bit of investment on the tree, you're going to get to a big number, and you're not going to die in maps, and it's going to feel good. And honestly, Sappho's was like already good for stuff like that, and now it's even better, so that's great. I don't know if it's going to be like, again, Aegis Aurora exists, everyone's going to talk about it, but this is really good. 1,000 Ribbons. This is another item I was not expecting to talk about when I, you know, started reading the patch notes, and then this happened, and I was like, wow. Actually, I mean, it happened while watching the video. First of all the rolls on it are good. The resistance rolls can go quite high, up to 30% per for each elemental resistance. That alone makes it very attractive. The fact that there are other damage options to Tabula Rasa really kind of pushes this into the stratosphere, though, because it's just solidly statted. Having a solidly statted chess piece that you really don't have to worry about for a long time is really nice. That's going to be, you know, it's like Goldrim. You can wear Goldrim the entire campaign, because the campaign really isn't that threatening. Thunder Fist. Thunder Fist was already kind of an interesting item, because if you found it right away at max level, it was like, or sorry, not max level, but, you know, maps. It was like, all right, I have a 5-link. You know, if your build can work with the level 18 added lightning damage, it's pretty good. It's better now. First of all, 100% increased effect of lightning elements is no joke, especially with some of the shock changes. Having that on an overshock skill is going to let you do some crazy things, especially considering this can be separate from your 6-link. So you can run these with Overshock on your lightning skill with 100% increased effect and a level 30 added lightning damage. It's kind of bonkers. This might get used like as the premier glove item for some builds. It just does a lot, and 100% increased effective lightning elements is a lot. I get the feeling this has moved up a rarity tier. It's probably not going to be as easy to find as it used to be. I'm kind of excited. Again, another unique item that like really came into the spotlight, and it just like, okay, yeah, there might be a build that like, you know, uses this for real. Because these are effects you can't get on a rare item, and that's what unique items are supposed to be about. Speaking of effects you can't get on a rare item, Wraithlord got changed. It was kind of a Spectre defensive item. Now it's a you are only playing Spectres, but you're playing a lot of them item. +2 to maximum number of Spectres is a lot. That's the long and the short of it. +2 is a lot. Do I know if this is going to be good enough for people to do a pure Spectre build that isn't allowed to run any other minions? No, I don't know. But there's definitely some room for it to be theory crafted now. It's very cool. You could probably do a hybrid summoner that runs Spectres, right? Something, you know, maybe something like just like a whole bunch of buffs going, or I don't even know. I don't know where to go with this one. I'm not the biggest expert on Spectres. I'm sure there's some creators out there who know better. They're going to say if this is actually good or a red herring. I'm hoping it's good, because I might want to play Spectres if I can have a lot of them. So we have a lot of other patch notes to cover, but I wanted to go into this, you know, kind of cutting out the fat, because it's going to be a long video no matter what. And I devoted a lot of it to talking about uniques. So we're going to go to kind of just the highlights of what's left. We already talked about faded uniques. Defense balance was in the manifesto. I do want to touch on the minion thing, because we weren't sure about minions in the manifesto. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're mostly going to be fine. I get the feeling there's going to be a few losers. They're not any skills that I play, so I can't comment on that like hard, but Dominating Blow is going to be fine. Absolution looks like it's going to be fine. Things like Herald of Purity are probably going to be stronger, which is cool. Yeah, Herald of Purity. Animate Guardian, I believe, is stronger now. Yes, much stronger, in fact. A lot of minion skills actually got stronger, like overall, because getting them to level 30 is, it sounds very difficult. It's generally not as bad as you would think, especially in Trade League. I remember I got to level, I believe it was 29 quite easily last league, and that was for single target. It was actually 30 wall clearing because of the way Awaken Melee Splash works. So being able to get to 30 now easily is a big deal, because you're 20% weaker at level 20, but you're only 10% weaker at level 30. And there's these new items that work, you know, the bone rings, even for the build that I played, which can't use the wands or the shields. Those bone rings might make up the difference. They might even surpass it. So I'm at ease when it comes to minions. Still probably not starting it though. I don't want to get got, you know. I don't want to find out down the line that like those mods are incredibly hard to get or something. I wouldn't necessarily recommend starting minions for the first time in a long time, you know. That's the big deal. That said, we've got Trickster to talk about. Trickster is likely very good now. Heartstopper is still duty, but Polymath, One Step Ahead, Spellbreaker, Escape Artist, and Soul Drinker are all fantastic nodes. Holy cow. Swift Killer is a bit more niche, but still really fantastic for the builds that want it. With the general nerfs to spell suppression, I expect a Trickster build to emerge that will be very high tier as a pick for Soul Self-Found hardcore players and just players in general that are survivability focused. In fact, the nodes are so strong that Assassins and Saboteurs are also probably buffed by virtue of Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame existing. Good job, GGG. I think this is what an Ascendancy rework should look like, because it's all very unique and it's all strong enough. Probably the best way to put it. So they did address the fact that lightning masteries are kind of hard to come by, and that there's not enough lightning damage clusters on the tree compared to other elemental types. They didn't do a good job of it though. It's still fucked. Cold masteries are kind of as well. I like that they noticed the problem, but I feel like either they willfully do this, which I hate, or no one has told them. But these masteries don't exist on the left side of the tree, and I'm sure from their perspective this is just a design philosophy thing. But really think about it for a moment. Isn't it kind of strange that something as generic as fire, lightning, and cold isn't available everywhere? I even think there should be an alternate. So what was it? The Burning Brutality node is close to Ranger as like a fire option. They should give an alternate branch within that cluster that goes to a more generic fire damage node so that fire builds down there can pick that up. And I just kind of don't like that they don't. I feel like it's a mistake. In general, it kind of limits your build focus if you start on a certain side of the tree. It takes 22 points. 22 points for a Marauder to get to a Lightning Mastery. Brain Rattlers in the game, all right? There are Marauders who are going to want to do stuff with Lightning, and it's really hard to do it. Yeah. Recombinator's got to mention. I was hoping this meant that we were somehow going to get them, but no. That said, what they did do is very important. You can't use them on mirrored items anymore, which is good for a lot of reasons. Crafting got smacked a little bit in this patch. I haven't talked too much about it. We will get to that in a moment, I think, though. Being able to recombinate mirrored items meant you could do crazy crafting things to them, but more importantly, it meant that someone could take the mirrored item, throw it into a recombinator, and try to get all the mods onto an unmirrored item. This is, you know, you're stealing the original copy from someone when you do that. And for the investment people put in, even if you don't like the fact that there are people who are so high on the wealth tree in the Path of Exile community and the economies, you know, in some way, huge amounts of money are moved around constantly in the game based on that instead of being, you know, dispersed into the community. If you get to that perfect item, you should be rewarded. There shouldn't be a way for someone to create a copy of it and then just immediately, you know, fuck it. So, well done. People want to aspire to this. Let them. So speaking of crafting, Harvest was changed. TFT is probably dead. No, TFT will still be used for bulk trades, which that's probably going to upset some people, but the bread and butter of Harvest is gone. Truly, completely. That's the way it goes. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, you take a look at it now. Everything's going to drop as a currency that you just used in your hideout, and that's kind of cool. You have it's almost like a currency that gives you fossil usage, except the crafts are a bit more specific and less modular, which is fine, right? You can do a bunch of Harvest and stock up, and Harvest is better overall for something that we're going to get to at the end. Tier 4 bosses are going to be much more frequent. Good. More Ashabi fights. Good, because Ashabi drops special life force used for a special set of crafts. Also probably good. Those are probably going to be the really good ones. Having the boss be more involved in that process and more desirable is a good thing, right? I hope the fight is less janky than it has been in the past as like a result of this. So yeah, they have addressed monster composition, which is what we're getting into here at the end. We're going to Arch Nemesis. Arch Nemesis was the boogeyman of the game last league. It outmoded so many builds, and it's finally being reined in what is probably a proper way. I remember in the live stream, Chris Wilson was talking about there being sometimes 6 to 8 times less rare monsters in certain types of content. Now, on top of this, the 4 mod monsters are back, and they can be much harder than anything we've faced yet, for obvious reasons. 4 mods, you know, more mods, more danger. But a lot of these monsters now also give more rewards, so they are more rewarding, and they're less common. So when you run into them, it's kind of a fight, especially if you're lower level and gearing up, but you're not getting mobbed by them, right? There's not going to be a whole pack of them on you in Ritual. There's not going to be a whole bunch coming down the lane in Harvest. You're not going to get swarmed in Abyss or Breach. This is very good. This is very, very good. A lot of the concerns with survivability and skills that take a lot to get going kind of get tampered down by this. This is the silver lining of everything. This is what's going to make it okay. Assuming it is okay. Obviously, we haven't played the game, so we don't know for sure, but this is where the optimism comes from. Rare monsters are handleable. You can get through them. They're going to give you good stuff when you do get through them, which is going to feel nice. I do worry slightly that the best builds at the top end are going to be way, way more profitable. That's my biggest fear right now. But I guess that's a minor fear, right? I mean, you can still play the game and get there now, instead of, you know, just repeatedly bashing your head into a brick wall like it was before. So there'll be room to goof around with a meme build again. And that's probably what the biggest loss of Arch Nemesis's integration was, is that meme builds got punished super hard. And that's over. So yeah, maybe this is too kind, but I've been hard on GGG lately. Honestly, 10 out of 10 passionates. They really kind of addressed all the small stuff. I'm giving it an even higher note because they fixed Arch Nemesis, I think, in the best possible way, and that would have like been enough. If everything else was perfect, I would have given them higher than a 10. And I know that's ridiculous, but I would have. It's really good. They really they did it. Good job, GGG.